One of the other ways Nitro set out to be different was to aim for a different demographic. The WWF, of course, was aimed at kids, so WCW decided they would target 18 to 35-year-old men, and they would move away from the cartoonish style stories of the WWF and move to a more reality-based product. Tony, as a fan, did you think that was smart? Because up until this point, WCW had certainly been catering to kids as well.
Yeah, I thought it was smart. I think you got to be different.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the problems near the end for us was we were seen as a WWE knockoff near the end of the run of Nitro. And I think that was a smart move. You had to be completely different. Let me ask you a question. How old were you in September of 95 in the first Nitro?
14.
14. All right. And so as you can see, we still drew a lot of, you were underneath that demographic.
Yeah.
We still drew a lot of kids your age because all of you say, I grew up watching this, and that's, you're a freaking millennial.
I'm technically a year or two older than a millennial, but we'll go with it.
You're a freaking millennial.
Okay.
I know I had a house full of them at one time. Those kids, those younger kids are the fan base of coming to WrestleCon or the NWA convention because they remember back. And so I think even though that we wanted to be different, I think we even still got the kids who were under that demographic like yourself.
Bischoff also said he wanted to limit the amount of promotion inside the show itself. And even today, the WWF is constantly promoting their stuff, whether it's on-sale dates for tickets or pay-per-views or network shows or buy this, buy that, only on pay-per-view, tune in next week, etc.
Right.
Bischoff wanted to have folks kind of wait and see what the main event was rather than hear about it a week in advance and then decide. And this is a major departure from the way professional wrestling had been promoted. But Eric's argument was, hey, man, they don't tell you on Seinfeld or ER what the show's going to be next week. You just tune in and find out. Do you remember being given this specific directive? And what did you think about it as an old school wrestling guy?
I don't remember being given this directive, but that kind of, at first, that kind of seems pretty cool, but we didn't end up like that.
No.
So when in the hell did we change? I mean, that to me, that's refreshing.
No, it was certainly a good idea. But I mean, even at the end of Nitro, which we'll get into the actual show in a minute, they tell you what the match is going to be next week. So
right at the end of it, they did,
and they even plug what's on Saturday night. So I think this was an idea in theory and concept, but ultimately it didn't really happen. Let's take a minute and put over the set design and presentation for Nitro. And
let me comment on that first.
Yeah,
I think you can do both. I think you can get the fans interested in what they're seeing right now without going over the top and promoting what's coming up next week or what's coming up on Saturday night. If you'll recall in watching that show, they didn't talk about next week until right near the end.
Right.
That was good. The heat or the angle that they had at the end led to next week's show, which was fine. So they didn't spend the whole hour of that show
hyping
talking about next week. And that to me was well done.
Yeah, no argument for me. A lot of the Nitro staples that we remember as far as the way the set looked, weren't there for the first Nitro because it's in a fucking mall. So you can't set up a ramp and pyro and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they had lots of little cool stuff that they did on Nitro too. Lights under the ring with a portion of the ring skirt being transparent, the fire imprints on the mats around the ring, the stage and the desk that the announcers were at, the entrance set, the lighting rig with pyro, an entrance set with lights and smokes and ramp. And all of this is accompanied by the now famous giant WCW diamond plate letters. And this is a cool setup. And I think in hindsight, that kind of gets overlooked. But you got to compare that to what the WWF was presenting at the time, which are just three big red letters, RAW. Would David Crockett have helped with this look, or who was involved in that?
Well, I would think that Craig Leathers, David was kind of more the guy, instead of coming up with the creative ideas of design, he was kind of the guy that did the legwork. We need this, we need this, we need that. You need to organize this. So I'm not so sure David was involved in the creative end of it, although I know he would be involved in any meetings about it.
Right.
We had a lot of people. We had Craig Leathers, who was instrumental. We had a kid named Rob Wright, who had worked for the WWE, who was very strong into graphics. And we also had Keith Mitchell, who was a long time worked for World Class Championship Wrestling down in Dallas. All these guys had very strong wrestling backgrounds. And, of course, Craig Leathers, who had worked for the WWE as well, had strong wrestling backgrounds, but were very strong in production. So they all got involved in that. And then we had some other people, too, and their names are not coming to mind right now, who were, with Pyro, with graphics. They were all, it was kind of a team thing.
Right.
To make this work.
I'm curious about the logo. Of course, we've had fun with that logo here on What Happened When, doing some logos that were kind of inspired by that. But did you ever see or remember seeing any sort of concept drawings for potential logos for the show, or was this the only one you ever saw?
It's the only one I've ever saw. Again, I was kind of on the outside on this.
Yeah.